Okay, now we're going to build on our knowledge even more, and we are going to talk about remote CheckDB connected mode with a new Minion backup. So we've already covered with no backup and with the last Minion backup, and you really should go watch those other two videos because they've got some important concepts in there. I'll do a little bit of repeating in this one just because I want the video to be a little complete, but you really should go watch the other ones. So, okay. In order to set this up for a new Minion backup, then you're going to have to add just a couple more steps to the last video, to what we did in the last video. So let's go ahead and review just a little bit. I'm going to get in this table here, and I'm going to show you how to set it up with the last Minion backup, just really quick as part of this. Let's see, so I want to be in, oh, this is stored procedures. No wonder I can't find it. I want to be in tables. There we go. So I want to be in CheckDB settings DB right there. So let's open that guy up. Okay. Remember, this only goes for CheckDB operations, and I'm going to do this on Minion Dev right here. So when I come over here, I'm going to, there we go, I'm in the section I need. I'm going to set isRemote equal to true. I'm going to set my preferred server. If it's on 1433, I'll leave it null. I'm going to set my preferred database name. That actually comes into play now. Remote job still doesn't come into play because it's going to be a connected restore. So I want this in connected mode, and then I want to set this to new Minion backup instead of last Minion backup, right? So if I were doing last Minion backup, then I would just come in here and I'm done. That's it. That's all it takes. Well, other than the backup piece, right? So okay, so that's what's required from CheckDB. Again, is remote, the server, the preferred database name, and again, you notice it takes these inline tokens, which there's another video about. But I'd like to give you some advice on this. I've done lots of these restores now. Lots of these remote CheckDBs, and I find that in a team, or even if you're alone and you're really busy, it's going to be far better if you say something about the database in the database name, right? So you notice here I've got DB name, CheckDB from, and then the server. So it's the name of the database is actually going to be Minion Dev CheckDB from BindyCon. And that way it's nice and descriptive, and you can't really say, what is this database for, who put this database out there, right? You might even say like remote CheckDB from BindyCon, something like that, right? But something that's really descriptive, and keep a naming convention, right? Use the same thing on all your servers. It's going to be a lot easier for you. And then of course the remote job is the exact same way, which we don't need here, but we do need, where is this? Connected mode and new Minion backup. Okay, so that's all we need from this table. Now we need to go to the backup tables, and I'm going to go to backup settings right here. In fact, I'm going to close this down. There we go. I'll go to backup settings, and again I have my Minion Dev right there. Now for this one, for the new backup, I need a new backup type. So here's what we did. I realized that CheckDB is not a backup type. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to give you a way to take a backup specifically for a CheckDB without altering your backup operations, right? So if you've already got backups running in Minion Backup, we didn't want you to have to mess with that because it can be problematic. If something happens to the CheckDB process, it can leave your backup process kind of iffy, right? You can, if you're changing settings back and forth and something happens to your server in the middle of it, then it can, it can get destroyed. Your settings can get destroyed, and then when it comes back up, then everything isn't right, and you've got to figure out what your settings were and all that. We didn't want that, right? So what we're doing here is we've given you a backup type of CheckDB, and really the only thing that's going to change is, if I can find it here, you are going to set copy only equal to true, because we figured that you might want to take a backup specifically for a CheckDB and restore it somewhere else, but we don't want it interfering with your differentials, right? So, and we didn't want you to have to flip that flag back and forth, right? Okay, so now you've got a backup type of CheckDB, and this actually has to be there. You can't replace this. When the CheckDB process runs and you have NewMinionBackup set, it passes in the backup type of CheckDB. So it has to have a CheckDB row. Now, you can have a CheckDB row for Minion default, of course, but in this case, I've got a database level override, but it has to be a backup type of CheckDB. We wanted this to be somewhat deliberate. Okay? All right. So, and again, you know, if you don't want that to be a copy only, then just copy the current row you have for whatever database row you're going to do, and then change this to CheckDB, and you're done. Okay. Now we go to backup settings path. There's no difference here, right? There is no CheckDB backup type here. We figured that you would probably send it to the same location or copy it to the same location or whatnot. So that's going to be golden. If you want it to go to a different location, you are going to have to flip the isActive bits, right? You can put it in here. You can put in the comment CheckDB, and then you can flip the other ones on and these guys off and pre and post code if you want to, for backup, that is, right? Well, yeah, I suppose you could do it for CheckDB too, but chances are you'll want this to go to the same location, so we went ahead and left that. But now we get into the restore stuff, and the restore stuff, if I can find it, is right here, restore settings path. Now, there's a full video on how to work with the new restore functionality in Backup 1.3. So I'm going to give you just a top-level view, but I really suggest you go watch that video so you understand everything of what you're doing, and then you'll understand some of the stuff in this video that I'm not actually going to explain. Okay, so here we are. It looks a lot like settings path, only what have I got here? I've got Minion Dev, and you notice I've got my server name. This is the server name that I'm going to restore to, right? And so I'm going to Minion Dev, and in this case, you notice how all of these are false. I'm going to show you all the Minion Devs right here for all the Minion Devs for Minion DevCon, and all of these guys are turned off except this top row, right? You can see right here that all those guys are turned off except that top row. So this is the only one that's active, and it's the only one I'm interested in. And what I'm saying here is that I want, oops, it's this one. There we go. Is I want all of the file types to go to E CheckDB restores. So I am going to restore all of the files to the same location. And then if I come here to restore file name, again, you'll notice that it's got the inline tokens, that I want the file name to be the database name plus CheckDB restore, and I want the extension to be whatever it was on the production side. Now this restore DB name is going to be overridden by the preferred DB name in the CheckDB table, right? So this is for more automated stuff, but we're actually going to pass in that other one because that's what you said you wanted, okay? All right. Also, if you want to tune your restore, let me go ahead and close this guy out, and I'll close this guy out. If you want to tune your restore, we have now a backup restore tuning thresholds. So again, I've got my server name and my database name, and you see here, I don't have a Minion DevCon, which is the 2. I don't have one of these guys for Minion Dev. So you don't have to have a row in here. Well, you probably do. It probably gets it from here. Yeah, so it gets it from its Minion default row. So I don't have one, so it's coming from Minion default. But you notice here, I've got my threshold measurement, my threshold value, right? My buffer count, my max transfer size. This means that based on the size of the database, I can tune this restore, and I can get it done as fast as possible, especially if it's on a dev box that I'm just using for CheckDB restores. Yeah, I'll probably want to max out those resources and do that as fast as possible. So you can do that here. And as well, there's something else that got shoved into here, replace. So if you've got a database that you want to keep the same name every single day, just make sure there's a row for this database, right? If I wanted it only for Minion Dev, then I'd copy this whole row and then put Minion Dev in the database name, and make sure that you turn on replace, and then you don't have to rotate through your names, and you don't have to make sure that the database gets dropped every day and all that, right? Okay. So that's done. Oh yeah, there's one thing that I forgot in Settings DB. I mentioned it in the last video, but I didn't mention it in here, so I might as well. Let's come right here, right there. There we go. So that is whether or not you want to drop the remote database. So right now we're going to say no, right? Because I want to be able to show you that database. But later on we will drop it. Okay. So that's the setup. Now let's go ahead and take a CheckDB. Now the call doesn't change, right? That's the cool thing about this is I'm calling this only with one database, but the call itself doesn't change. All of these settings are going to be figured out inside the routine. I've already told it what I want it to do, and then now it's just going to go do it. So now we're going to run over here and we're going to run this, and let's see what happens. There we go. Now let's come over here. There, so we're running Minion Backup. Now, if this backup takes a long time, then we'll actually get a percentage complete here, but I know that this one finishes fast enough. Oh, we got a fatal error. So let's go ahead and see what the error is, because I like to troubleshoot these things in front of you guys. Let's see what we have here. Restore terminating abnormally. Stop at restore statement. With replace. Oh, I see. Okay, so the problem is that... Right. So the problem is that I think I still have the database on the other server. This is what happens when I don't make sure that my database is cleaned up. So when I come here, I gotta do this. There we go. So now I'm gonna refresh this. Takes a few seconds. There we go. Now, if I come back down here, yeah, there we go. The database is already there, and I don't have replace turned on. So now, I will do that. But now you see, you get some errors in here, right? So now let's run this. And now when I do this, I should have running Minion Backup, and again, it happens too fast for the percent to come across. And now we're restoring on Minion DevCon. We're at 40%. $96. 100. Now, it's going to stay here at 100 for a couple minutes because it is recovering the database. It's running through recovery, right? So when it says restoring and it's 100, then that means that it is still going through recovery. And here, let's prove that, because now if I refresh that again, there we go. Get down there. There we go. You can see that it's not going to go over there. There we go. There we go. Restoring. So if I come back here even, you can see that it's still restoring. Here we are. And now you can see that we're running CheckDB and we're at 22% complete. And let's go ahead and show the restored database. I'll refresh that while I do this. You see I'm at 100 now. It's complete. And this job over here just quit. And now we'll get down here to our restored database. And there you go. There you have it. And then we come in here, and again, we've got the preferred server. It is remote. The name of the database that we were, or the name of the server that we were doing, the preferred database name. and so on and so on, right? So, because we've got the CheckDB name here, right? This is the name that it was actually run on, and you can see that matches this guy over here. And you know, and again, we've got this naming convention, right? I've got the database name, CheckDB from Bindicon, and you really should say something like remote CheckDB from, right? But here I give you all the information that you could possibly need to troubleshoot this and to monitor it, and whether you're doing it in connected mode or disconnected mode or a local one or with a restore, without a restore, you'll always know what the status is in here, and we even give you some error messages along the way. But you know what? Let's take a look at something just real quick. We got this error before, the fatal error, right? Because the database over here already existed. And I solved that by deleting the database. Well, let's go ahead and solve that another way, shall we? So now I'm going to come back into this table here, and I'm going to go into the backup restore tuning thresholds table. And I'm going to take this Minion default, and I'm going to turn on with replace. There we go. So now it's going to add with replace to the end of the restore command. So what that means, of course, is that now I can keep that same database if I want to, and I can restore it as the same name. Really only important if you don't have a good process in place for doing that. I mean, we've made it so easy for you to have a good process, right? I mean, with this, where is it? With this guy right here, I can very easily come into my 1058 row right there and make the database name, preferred DB name. I could very, very easily make it the date. Put the date in there as well, right? So now it'll rotate every single day, and you'll know that that's today's, that it actually restored, because it's got today's timestamp on it, right? So we've made it so easy for you to do this. And you don't have to do that for every database. You could do it at the Minion default level, and that's why we have the database parameter in there, right? So, you know, this is only a thing. Having the exact same database every single day is only a thing if you don't have a good restore mechanism. But now you do. So, but anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at this. And so I did that. Okay, so now I should just be able to run this. Okay, so here we are. You can see that we are actually running the restore now. And that's it. This set of videos on connected mode gives you a really good idea of how things work, and it lays a lot of the groundwork for the disconnected mode. And remember, it's called connected mode because we're actually running the statements remotely from this box, right? The server over there, the remote server, is not receiving the commands. It's just like you were typing them in to Management Studio here and running them from your local box. So if something happens in the middle, right, if there's a network glitch or something, then the operation's going to die. So if you want something a little bit more robust, something that can withstand something like that, like network glitches and stuff like that, then go ahead and watch the disconnected videos, and let's see how that works.